What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Rewind Recap Relive, where legends and rising stars meet. I'm your host, Jonah, coming at you with number one, a brand new haircut. Thank you for noticing. Wore my mask and everything. And number two, a brand new, incredible episode featuring a rising star in the independent scene, NPK, and Hornswoggle. But first, let's get into the winner of the Hornswoggle shirt, next week's episode, and next week's giveaway. Alright, so first, the winner of last week's giveaway, and let me tell you, there were a lot of entries, alright? Sadly, there can only be one of you, but those comments just kept coming and coming. A lot of great comments, but the winner of the signed Hornswoggle shirt is Heels Corner. Congratulations, you are the winner, and we will be in touch. Now, next week on the show, we have two amazing wrestlers in Sky Blue and Original TNA Knockout, ODB. And you're going to hear some great things on this episode, including where Sky sees her career heading, the evolution of women's wrestling through the years, ODB's food truck, some great advice, of course, from ODB to Sky, and so much more. And of course, we also have a giveaway for next week, which is going to be a signed food truck T-shirt from ODB. Now, if you don't know about ODB's food truck, ODB's meet and greet, totally check it out. It's a great thing what she's doing right now. But you get to win a signed T-shirt from that food truck, and what you have to do is comment hashtag R3giveaway down below in this video. That's hashtag R3giveaway down below in the full Hornswoggle and NPK interview, and you will be entered to win that incredible shirt. Alright, everything is taken care of. Looks like we've checked off all the boxes. Now all you guys have to do is please subscribe to the channel. Tons of engaging content in the works, on the way to you, so keep an eye out for that. Like the video, comment down below, even if it's not to enter the giveaway. We'd love to hear from you. But most of all, please enjoy the episode. Alright, so our first guest is a newcomer on the wrestling scene. He has wrestled predominantly in the Chicago area, but really wants to expand as his career grows. He is a man known as NPK.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And next we have a guest who's left his mark on the wrestling world and continues his esteemed career today. Please welcome to the show, Hornswoggle.
I didn't know if you were talking about me or NPK with that first introduction. But I'm glad now that I got that right, that one. So we're all on the same track now. Perfect.
All right. So first, I'd just like to start off with something basic for both of you. If you could just speak about where wrestling went from just an interest for you and to where you want to make it your career. Of course, Nate, that'll come in the future, and Hornswoggle, it is your career. So can you go first, Hornswoggle? Where did that transition come into play?
Yeah, man. So I was a wrestling fan since I was 4, and I remember saying to my grandpa and my parents, that's what I'm gonna do. And they all, as a 4-year-old kid, it's like wanting to be Superman and or an astronaut or whatever. This was my pipe dream. Yeah. And throughout my my age and throughout school and just growing up, I never went away from wanting to be a professional wrestler. And so that was all I wanted to do. That's all I cared about was becoming. And so it's really, then it just happened. I decided, I did the backyard wrestling thing. And then our backyard company that we did, we were drawing 300 people to backyard shows on Sunday afternoons. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. So then,
what company was that called? Did that have a name? That
FVWA in Appleton, Wisconsin. And
oh, nice.
So we were crazy. And then this local indie promoter, pardon me, he came out to the shows with a cooler of beer and some of his buddies, because he heard we were drawing this huge crowd more than he was for the indie shows. And so he kind of just nabbed us. Hey, you guys want to take this pro? And I thought, oh, you mean in a real ring? This is awesome. This will be great. So it's, and I just started training at 17, and it was off to the races. and I never viewed it as a career by any means. At that point, I was working. I think I worked 3 shows out of the state in 2 years that I was working the indies before WWE. And so it was just a weekend thing that I like to do as a hobby that I would call into work for like an idiot. And it's, but it's one of those, then I got the call and it was off to the races again. It never was meant to be a career for me. Like I wanted it to be, but it shouldn't have happened. A 4'4" kid from Wisconsin at 19 years old shouldn't have had a career. That's not usually the target that WWE looks for.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would definitely want to get into when you got that
Yeah.
call. But Nate, do you resonate with that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my family wasn't a big wrestling family at all. My dad was an amateur wrestling coach for 30 years. He just retired, but, pro wrestling was never really something that was around my house until I was in middle school, and I met a couple friends, and they were like, "Hey, Nate, have you ever checked this out?" And I'm like, No. So they turned it on TV, and it captured me fully. You know what I mean? It's like the first time seeing Undertaker in there, I was like, whoa, what is this? What is this magical world where guys just get to go and do this? And, from that moment, it had never really left to me. And, the same that he had said, it's like, you do the backyard thing if you're really that passionate about it. And, unfortunately, I never had any promoters come to our shows. We probably drew like 30 or 40 people at most, but I totally resonate with that. And it's kind of cool to see, that transformation as you start to almost, I think it kind of hit me in high school when I really, like, that moment came when I realized, like, hey, this could be something that I could do. This is something that might not be that far out of reach, obviously. For many years and years, it was always like, Nate, you got to have a backup plan. You're going to go to school, you're going to get your degree, and you're going to have a backup plan in case the whole wrestling thing falls through. But, what's so awesome about that is that I also found this love for film and television production, and being able to like mold these two worlds has been such a roller coaster so far, figuring out that it's like, hey, I can realistically do both of these at the same time, which is awesome. But yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And actually, one of my buddies that I backyard wrestled with, his dad used to just work some indie shows in our area through Illinois and up into Wisconsin. And he told me one day, he's like, Nate, if you're really serious about this, I'll take you down to this promoter I know in Woodstock, and we can go check out a show. And if you want, maybe you can talk to him after the show and see if you can come down and train. And went down to a premiere. Went in, watched a show, was able to talk to a couple of the wrestlers, and then I introduced myself to Randy Ritchie after the show. And he was just like, hey, man, if you want it, this is what I charge. If you want to come in and train, you can. And we were off to the races.
That's great. That's really inspirational. And Hornswoggle, so how did your path lead you to WWE? When did you actually get the phone call for that, and the months maybe leading up to it? How'd you get there?
Oh, there was no months leading up to it. They called me in March to be an extra for a random backstage thing with Snitsky and Goldust and Candice Michelle because they needed a midget. Yes, we can say that word. I'm okay with it. That word makes me money. They needed a midget for a backstage thing. I did that. Then it was like a month and a half later, they called me and said, hey, we're looking for someone like you. You're the guy. Ken told us you're good. And show up to TV the next week. And then a week later, they had a contract waiting for me. So wow. I always say I owe 90%, 90% of my career to Ken. Because he trained me. He had a lot to do with my training. He put his name out there for me for my job in WWE. He got injured and had me be Vince's son. Like, it's all that stuff where it's like everything kind of like a lot of cool things that happened to me in wrestling and in WWE specifically were because of him or involved him in some crazy way.
You actually, speaking of Ken, Nate, you were just speaking about how you're possibly getting trained by him.
Yeah. So I obviously originally trained by Rockin' Randy Ritchie in Woodstock, Illinois, but I moved up to Minneapolis on Sunday for an internship that I had this summer, and Randy hooked me up with Ken and reached out, and hopefully if everything starts opening up, I'm going to be able to go in and roll around with the guys and train with them, while I'm here. But definitely I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to even, go down there and do that.
It's awesome because my company I'm sure we'll hit on later. We have a good working relationship with Ken's academy and vice versa, and he does with ours too. So it's awesome. It's a very, very small world.
Yeah, it's actually really crazy. Once the ball starts rolling, how many people know each other. And that's, one thing that those guys tried to instill in me, at least when I started training. I mean, I'm nowhere near to be able to say that I am 100% trained, because you never really are, but they're just like, Nate, you want to be friends with everybody, man. Making connections is huge. It's like that in every, realm of life. So.
And Hornswoggle's contract was waiting for you. You got to WWE. You were backstage. Is it true that you got in trouble for taking pictures of some of the guys backstage? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I was an idiot. I was an idiot looking back at it, but I never thought it was during the extra work in Milwaukee, and then I went the next day to Green Bay just to try out as Finley's Leprechaun. But I thought, I'm never going to be here again. I'm going to get pictures with as many guys as I can. I got one with Paul London. I know I got one with Angle. I got one with Ray. And that was like the last one that Ray actually asked, like the security guard who previously told me, hey, stop taking pictures. He asked the security guard to take the picture for us. And as soon as we were done taking the picture, the Jimmy Tillis, the head of security at the time, goes, I should really snap this camera in half right now. I think it's time to leave. And I go, yeah, it might be time to leave. So
overstayed your welcome. Yeah.
It's just funny looking back at.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
I never thought I would be there, and a month and a half later, I was there every week.
And what were their reactions when they did see you there every week? Did they know who you are when you were first taking the pictures?
They never. No. I didn't have any indie name to myself at all. Like I said, I worked only Wisconsin. I didn't travel at all, and but it's I don't know. I remember a couple of guys like laughing about it when, especially Jimmy Tillis, he would bring it up all the time.
Yeah,
and it was funny to kind of laugh and look back at.
Absolutely. And so, Nate, were you ever intimidated when stepping into the ring for the first time?
I mean, I think there always is that intimidation factor. Definitely in at least where I trained at in Woodstock, it's a very tight-knit community there. There's not a ton of guys, but the guys that are working there are good, and they've been there for years, and they all know each other. And it's like you're the new kid in school stepping into this family that's like been together for years. And I think honestly that was probably the most intimidating thing for me. I was lucky when I was younger, and I actually my parents and I invested in this little like 12 by 12 ring, because I remember my mom always saying to me, she's like, Nate, I mean, you're gonna know if you want to do it once you bump in that ring, you know what I mean? So I would say tackling that was probably the biggest intimidation factor, and going in and not wanting to like step on anybody's toes, but also trying to be yourself the best that you can. I think that's probably the toughest thing that I had once I started going to train.
I always say the minute you're not intimidated or nervous, no matter how long you've been doing it, you're too comfortable, and you now are putting yourself or viewing yourself on a pedestal almost. I tell that to my
Definitely.
students day one. If you don't get nervous, you're too comfortable.
Yeah, it is definitely something that has not gone away yet. So
Yeah.
good. um, but yeah, I totally agree. Sometimes it's not a bad, sensation, but it is one that it keeps you on your toes, keeps you wanting to come back
Yep.
for sure.
So you know that you're going to debut as Hornswoggle, right? So can you talk first about how you found out that you're going to be in this role?
Well, I heard when I did the extra work that they're trying out midgets, in backstage promos to be Finley's Leprechaun. And so that first day I said, hey, could I come tomorrow in Green Bay
Yeah.
and try out? And he said, sure. And talked to Tony Gurria at the time, who was head of the extra talent. And so I talked to him and he goes, yeah, come tomorrow. I went. I completely bombed my tryout, interview, and all that. But again, Ken put his name out there for me, and they called me and said, hey, we want to debut you as Finley's Leprechaun Sunday at the pay-per-view. And if not Sunday, it'll be Tuesday at the SmackDown taping. And that was it. And it was kind of instant.
Yeah, and so a debut in front of thousands of people, how was the pressure setting in for you at that time?
You know what? I just said I wasn't, it's bad to not be nervous, but I don't think I was nervous so much as just damn excited.
Yeah.
And they told me flat out, this is probably going to be a 6-month gig, and who knows? And I somehow turned 6 months into 2 weeks under 10 years somehow, either by luck and staying under the radar or doing something okay. But it was awesome. That first day was so kind of just mind blowing to me at the time. Like, hey, this is actually happening. And then because it was taped that Tuesday for SmackDown, I got to watch it at home, like with my girlfriend at the time
amazing.
and her parents, and my dad got to watch it. It's just really cool because I got to experience that with the people I loved.
Right, and really that 10-year career is so much more than some other guys. I have to say, from growing up watching you, you're recognized, you're highly recognized, a very successful career.
Go ahead.
Were you worried about anything in particular when you were, underneath that ring, when you were about to make that debut?
Yeah, in the rehearsals, I kept coming out too early or too late, or just it wasn't right. But then they gave me a headset for underneath.
Yeah.
And I got to go over the cue again and make sure everything. So I don't think I think all the worry at that point went away. It was just replaced with such excitement. And
absolutely, from being a fan for so long, it must have been surreal.
Yeah, and not wanting to hit my head or do something stupid on my way, like something dumb.
Exactly.
And it went from the nervousness about doing it correctly to something else getting in the way of doing it correctly.
Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about commitment. So Nate, I know you're still in college and you're juggling the two at the moment, right? Wrestling and school.
Yep.
So Hornswoggle, when you did get signed, can you talk about how that level of commitment, how important that was, and how it really just changed your life once you got signed? What were the days that you were putting in travel-wise and et cetera?
I would leave on Saturday mornings, and I would come back on Wednesday morning. Okay. Every week. So I was home fully just Thursday and Friday.
Wow.
So I would fly home. Yeah. Literally, I would be home Wednesday, either the morning or sometimes late afternoon, evening. Be home Thursday all day, be home Friday all day, but then 5 a.m. Saturday morning, I'd be flying out.
So it just changed like that too. As soon as you signed, you were on the road like that?
2 weeks in. I remember to this day, I did the TV the first week, the debut, and then I did the next week. And then Howard Finkel, the late Howard Finkel, he called me and said, hey, you're going to be on the house shows with Finley going forward. And I was like, okay. What does that mean? Well, you'll be flying in, and he just gave me the schedule, and it literally, and then 2 weeks after that, I was going to the Philippines. I didn't know where the Philippines was, and now I'm going to the Philippines for 3 shows, and I've never owned a passport in my life, ever in my life, and now I'm flying across the world.
Yeah.
I didn't know I had to get a new phone plan, so I went over there with my cell phone, racked up about a $1,200 cell phone bill because of the overages. And it's just such little stupid things that a small town Wisconsin kid doesn't know, but learned very quickly.
Right. And so, Nate, when the time does eventually come, are you prepared to make that type of commitment?
Yeah. Obviously, like you said, I wouldn't say it's been a massive struggle, being able to try to balance both. Honestly, it's been fun for me being able to do both. Taking that time to be at school, commit to that fully, but also training that, 6 months of at school to be ready to come back and get back in the ring. And luckily I haven't found too much, of kind of a step back once I've been able to get back in. This is honestly the first summer that I haven't been able to get back to Woodstock since I started my freshman year, because I started training once I graduated high school. So it's about, like, I would guess a year and a half, give or take, like with stoppages, obviously, throughout the year to go to school. But it's great because, it keeps me hungry, I think, in the time when I'm not there, because I come back and I get to work with all these amazing people. And then, I have to leave, and, I kind of let I let it push me. Usually in my training, I let the thought of it be like, you know what, Nate, some of these guys are doing it all the time, and you got to be ready to come back and go 100% once you get back in there. So yeah, fully. I trust myself, once I graduate, but obviously I wanted to respect, my parents' wishes and me, finding that love of film, wanting to be able to make sure that I had, another platform to follow, in case, the wrestling thing doesn't work out. But I mean, once I get that cap and gown, man, it's 100% go time.
Hornswoggle, Nate just, mentioned respecting his parents' wishes. How were when you broke the news to your family that you had gotten signed? What were their feelings on that you were going to travel the world now?
My dad at first hated when I was indie wrestling. I quit college before I flunked out of college. First semester, I failed 4 out of 6 classes, including choir. And the fact that I took choir, much less flunked choir in college, is disgusting to me. But I had a show when the final, the semester concert was. I had a show, and so I was like, I'm going to do this stupid indie show and make $20, which I'm going to spend on the way home.
Yeah.
So he supported it. He knew I was happy, and he didn't want to support me doing it because I was making dumb decisions. Me with my son now, I see exactly where my dad was coming from, and I would call in sick to work and all this, but he was the first person, second person I called. I called my grandpa first, because he was, no matter what, even on the indie stuff, he just, every weekend he told my dad he enjoys doing this. He loves this. Eric, stop yelling at him. He's good. He loves doing this. He's going to do something with it. And man, I could hear through the phone my grandpa crying, for me, because he was so damn happy for me. And it was one of those cool moments. And then I called my dad, and he goes, I'm so happy. He was so proud that it worked out. He goes, I never doubted you. I just wanted you to do the right thing as my kid. And now I see that fully. And I didn't then, because I was a stupid 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid that I knew everything about the world.
Yeah.
The world, I owned it. I was an independent wrestling star in Wisconsin for 5 companies every other weekend. It was dumb, but it's he couldn't have been happier for me. And I always like kind of laugh because I always say my dad isn't a wrestling fan. He's a Dylan fan. And so he comes to our local shows, my company's shows, and he helps out at the front door and you know, the signings and that. And he's always there to support and help. But wrestling has never been his thing. And it's just funny to me that he's such a. We had a show yesterday. Sunday, was that? 2 days ago. Jesus, during this pandemic, man, it's just all rolled together.
How is your show going during the pandemic?
We had our show on Sunday had 275 people there, and it
wow,
was absolutely insane. We social distance chairs, and we temperature checked everyone before they came in, hand sanitized everyone as soon as they came in, every time they would come in and out. Provided masks for every fan in the place, cleaned the ring between all the matches. We did everything we could, and we wanted people to know you're safe here. Like you're gonna be safe. We're going to do everything we can to keep everyone safe, and we did, and it was awesome. I expected 50 people during this craziness, and especially because you know, advanced tickets weren't going well. And I thought about it, and it finally hit me that day. I don't want to buy advanced tickets for something because who knows if it's going to happen.
Especially
so day of sales, we had like 16 sales the day of the show, and it was just crazy to me. But I get it. I fully understand because it's just this crazy time that we live in, and it's whoever. No one ever saw this coming, and no one ever saw anything like this. I tell my son. You know, 2 weeks into this whole thing, I said to Landon, I said, buddy, I don't know what this all is. I don't know what this means. I just don't know because me, your grandpa, your great grandpa, we've never experienced this in our lives, and we won't. It's just this is the craziest time. It's something that we'll look back on when everything's back to normal, because it's going to be back to normal. There will never be a new normal. I don't believe in new normal because that's not normal. It's a new way of living, but it's not normal life. Let's be honest here. So when it's back to normal, we're all going to look back on this like, I mean, it's the craziest time ever. Craziest time, and not just for wrestling, just for
in general,
the world, just life. Life is the craziest time. When I mean, there's stickers on the ground everywhere you go to say, hey, keep away from each other. And it's such a weird time.
It's really, it could definitely get depressing, but that's a wonderful story with your father and your grandfather.
Going back to that, they were in a roundabout way. They were very, very happy and supportive and just happy that I was able to start living my dream that I always wanted to do.
Being around the world as you were, are there any pleasant or unpleasant traveling stories that you can think back on, that you can recall specifically?
This is one of those things that I always blame on vodka and concussions, sadly, that I don't have a memory of. But it's, man, doing it at 19, 20, 21 years old and literally traveling the world.
Yeah.
It was just such a mind-blowing experience, and so crazy. Every week was a different city, or every day was a different city, and different countries every other month, and it was so much for a 19, 20-year-old kid. And it's I mean, my first riding team was me, Great Khali, Mark Henry, and Davari, and that in itself is a trip, and it's an
interesting crew for sure.
Yeah, it's a human circus, that's for sure.
So Nate, can you tell us a little bit about your mentors? Could also be your trainers, and who helped you get to where you are now in the stage of your career?
Yeah, so I mean, even going off what Hornswoggle had talked about, you know, family, at least for me, has been a huge thing because, you know, my parents were the same way. At least when I kind of had voiced it, I'm like, hey, mom and dad, I think I might want to try doing this. And they're like, Nate. Let's be real, okay? And as things started progressing, and I found the school, and I mean, I was a 3-sport athlete all through high school, and my parents never told me, Nate, don't do this. But I think I'm in the same boat as Hornswoggle, where it's they weren't necessarily telling me not to do it, but they were also, still on my side. I think through it all, and honestly, everywhere that I've been up until this point is all because of my parents. Because once the train started rolling, I mean, they were on the tracks with me, and I can't thank them enough for all the support that they've given me sitting through, some really crappy backyard wrestling shows to some of the main events that I've been in at PPW. To see it come full circle, and to be able to lock eyes with my mom and dad, and just let them know that, hey, we've made it this far. Why not try to take it as far as we can? I mean, along with that too, Randy has been so influential on me, because being an athlete and younger, I always kind of attached myself to my coaches. I liked having that mentorship, having someone to be able to follow, and Randy's had years of experience in the wrestling business, and he's a great freaking dude, man. He's a great guy to be around. They're all great guys to be around. They're like my big brothers,
right?
Basically, you know what I mean? I get to go in and have fun with them, and even being able to wrestle with Sky while she was there training with me, it was awesome. It was an absolutely awesome experience, and Randy's helped me thus far in the wrestling business. And obviously you always want to be making connections different places, but yeah, even the connection with Ken, I mean, I can't thank him enough, because he's willing to stick his neck out for me and let him know, like, hey, this kid's a good kid. He works hard, and he's just looking for an opportunity. So, I have to give those three probably the most thanks up until this point.
It sounds great. It sounds like a really good time so far. And having been with the WWE during the time that you were, Hornswoggle, you have a really, I think, unique perspective, like a modern perspective. You've been there through all these great guys that have come through the doors. So I'd like to talk about your relationship and experience with some of those guys. So can you just talk about the first time you met Vince McMahon?
It was my first day. He was running the rehearsal, and he, like I said, I flubbed the rehearsal, and you can find out about that all in my book there.
Yeah.
And I flubbed it 2 or 3 times, and I thought, man, it's going to be the quickest career ever. Having being fired on day one, not being used after this, and obviously I would go on to work with him as the in the Vince's son story.
Yeah, of course.
And all that, and then, but with Vince, he, as long as you treat him like a boss, he's going to treat you with respect, and I was never treated poorly by him ever. He, like I say, him, that company gave me 10 years of my life that I was living my dream.
Yeah.
I can't ask for much more than that. But I was always, it's hard to not be intimidated by him. That's for sure. And
right.
I always I look back now, and I always think, like, why didn't you, in between those backstage shots, why didn't you just pick his brain and just ask him random things? Because he wouldn't have cared. He would have loved it, I'm sure. So that's probably the biggest regret I have about my time in WWE, is not asking him, not interacting with him more when I was so close, working so close with him for so long. I mean, it was 6 months, I think, or it seems like that. And it was just, I should have picked his brain more.
For sure. And how did the illegitimate son storyline actually make its way to you? How did you find out? I know you speak about it in your book a lot. If you could tell.
Yeah, they literally, Bruce Pritchard told me at 3:30 that day when they were doing the rehearsal. He caught me and said, "Hey, give me your phone." Oh, no. All right. Well, you're gonna want to give me your phone. okay. I give it to him, and all he says is, "You're the son." And I go, okay. And it was literally off to the races. It was kept secret from everyone.
Yeah.
They snuck me under the ring, snuck my gear under the ring. I got to call my dad, and literally just tell him, "Hey, can you bring Grandpa to the show tonight? It would be really cool." And that was it.
Yeah.
And they had tickets waiting for them for that night, and it was awesome. It was incredible. And the next day we were flying overseas. Like,
Right.
I didn't even like it just kind of sucked because I wanted to hang out with I just wanted to hang out with my family and my friends that night because it was such an incredible night for me. But we were literally, after the show, we went to the Green Bay, the airport. We all got on the charter plane to fly overseas. And it was, okay, this is crazy. My phone's blowing up the whole time.
I would be sure, yeah.
And it was awesome. It was so, so cool.
How long did you actually get to interact with your father and grandfather?
No, I literally got a text from them. I got to text with my dad after, because I got snuck under the ring at 3:45, and I was under there till the end of the show. So wow, it's awesome. It's just crazy.
Nate, could you speak a little bit about who NPK is and what personality you try to get across to the crowd when you're out there?
Yeah. So obviously still in the early stages of being able to kind of figure out who I am, at least. Randy gave me the chance in Premiere to kind of allow, with some wiggle room in how I was developing myself as a character with him. And I mean, I offer a lot of my thanks in the development of myself to Matt Vine. He's a wrestler in Woodstock, and he's been doing this for years, been able to go down and work at OVW with Al, and really, those two kind of guided me from my first couple matches. And then, when they were able to look at me and be like, "Nate, I think we're going to run with you and Matt for the summer to be headlining most of these shows." And I was like, okay. I honestly, like Hornswoggle has said, they give you that little kick. They're like, "I guess you're the guy now." And it's like, okay, let's see how this goes. And those guys really helped me come out of my shell. I've never really been a reserved person. I am very much an extrovert. But I think trying to figure out how to display myself as me to the fans and be able to learn how to make that connection, I have to thank those two guys for, because, sitting down from day one, they were like, "Nate, you are responsible for telling this story. And you're also responsible for getting yourself over with them. We can do as much as we can do to help you, but if you don't help yourself and constantly, be exploring new things with your character, you're never gonna make the moves that you want to make." The chances, I wouldn't say that it's been super, explored up until this point, but I've had a lot of fun so far, and honestly, it's me. A second look at maybe who I thought I could be when I was little. Can I be this superhero guy to all these people in the crowd? And it's just it's a hardworking kid who looked for an opportunity, and when he's given those opportunities, he's willing to take it, and he's willing to do anything and everything to make sure that he makes it. So.
Right. And Hornswoggle, when you obviously first got there, would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert? Kind of like Nate was just talking about.
I was an introvert for about a week, and I'm a very extroverted person. Consummate ball buster.
Yeah.
A locker room bully, I was called. I'm okay with that. because I expect it back. And if they're gonna, I'm gonna dish it out and take it, and it's something that I've always done. That's why I never I talk about in the book about how I wasn't picked on in high school because I would be the first one to laugh at myself and kind of poke fun at myself, that kind of thing. So I was very, very extrovert, and many people will say the locker room bully thing. I was just a shit stirrer, pardon my French, but it's me. That was me to a T.
Any particular antics you can touch upon?
I would always try to turn Yoshi Tatsu and Great Khali against each other.
Did it ever work?
I would always kind of get them against each other about whose English was better, and they would always go back. They would always try to prove to me and everyone that each one's English was better. And finally, they just start. Yoshi would get wound up very, very easily, and because Khali is a very dry sense of humor.
Yeah.
And especially with his little English that he could talk. And it was always, I would just wind him up, and both of them. And it was so easy to do. So easy. So they were my fun targets for a good amount of time.
Yeah. An instigator, that's the best of us, really.
That was me.
At heart.
To a T.
And then stand back and just watch it unfold.
Yep.
Nate, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off earlier.
No, you're fine. I think, what he was talking about, that's, it's the beautiful thing about professional wrestling is that, you're with these people all of the time. And, it's creating those relationships, I think, is a really cool thing if you can get a group of guys that are, you're lucky to be around, obviously, and being able to sit under the learning tree that I have at Premier, it's awesome. It's hard, definitely getting into it. I was ready to crap my pants as soon as I walked in there, and I'm shuffling around I'm gonna keep my eyes down and be like, thank you, sir, thank you, shake everybody's hand and be on in it, be on with it. But yeah, it's that's the cool thing that I think not a lot of people get to see. Everybody knows that you're with these people all the time, and obviously I have nowhere to talk compared to what Dylan's done, but obviously once you're fully able to open up to these people and allow yourself to come out, it's cool, because then I think I saw the most growth within myself in and outside of the ring is when I was finally able to just become friends with all these guys and be able to pick everybody's brain about everything and everything, anything and everything that I could.
That kind of goes back to the, what he touched on, goes back to the whole not taking yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
We're all human beings, and we're all on the same level at the end of the day. When I get fired tomorrow, I'm back to being a normal human being.
Yeah.
So if I treat myself as a normal human being, just makes me kind of better in the long run.
Definitely. And so he called you Dylan. I'm going to call you Dylan now too, because Hornswoggle gets to be a mouthful sometimes. But
thank you.
Can we talk about some of the mini themed things that you were a part of with the WWE, like the Little People's Court, the mini Battle Royal over the years? Was there any, first, how was the setup for those things? WLC, we'll get to the WLC because I particularly love that match. But for those two events, let's say Little People's Court, mini Battle Royal, how'd the setup go for that?
I know the Little People's Court was supposed to happen, I think, the week before, because Vern Troyer hosted, and he said he didn't want to work with other midgets.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was the weirdest thing ever to me.
Yeah.
There's the whole taking yourself too seriously thing, because he was supposed to be the judge for the court, which would have been amazing, but it's all right. I mean, it is what it is. But otherwise, other than that, it was kind of just hey, show up. This is what you're doing today. Awesome. And it was always, any of that stuff when I got to, I was such a prominent role in that whole couple of years. And then, between the cruiserweight champion stuff and Vince's son, it was such a crazy, crazy time. And whenever they had the guest hosts, I always said kind of like, all right, what am I getting signed this week? Because whenever there was a guest host, I would get something signed by him. And it's all kind of in my bar in the basement. And it's just kind of featured down there. And
oh, that's amazing.
But every guest host I did something with, 90% of them. And it was awesome. It was awesome. I got to do something with almost every guest host in some way, shape, or form. So it was always a really cool thing during that whole time.
It's such a cool, really cool experiences. Was there ever any blowback controversially that you heard of with some of those little people stunts?
Little People of America?
Yeah.
No, not that I know of. It never made it my way because Vince hates the word midget.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he hates that word like a lot. That's crass. Well, you had a guy have sex with a dead body. I don't think the word midget is too bad in my mind. Like, it's just a word. But that's just something. Little bastard didn't last very long once they realized that they couldn't put that on a toy at Toys R Us.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. I never heard any blowback, but I'm sure there was in reality.
Gotcha. And so you showed up at the Greatest Royal Rumble, and how was that for you? Was that the first time that you had been back since being released?
When they need ticket sales, they call upon the little guy. What can I say? No, it was awesome. So I did the Saudi thing. I did the Saudi Rumble.
Yeah.
And then that's the one we're talking about. I was
right. Yeah.
The women's Rumble, but the Saudi Rumble, yeah, like they flew me in. It was 22 hours of flying there, 22 hours back, and I was there for less than a day. I was there for like 18 hours.
Wow,
crazy.
So it was a crazy amount of travel compared to the little time I was there. But it was awesome. It was I got to say I wrestled in Saudi Arabia, and that's the only time I need to be able to say that. But it was awesome. I literally saw the hotel and the arena and the airport, and that's all.
So you didn't have obviously much time there, but how do those shows, from what you did see, differ from, obviously aside from location-wise, how do they differ between your average show that you did work? Is there a difference in crowd reaction?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, they're fans, but it's just, they're like friends of the prince and that.
Yeah.
And there's not seats. There's like couches and like lounge chair.
I know.
Insane. It was real crazy. And during the show, they stopped the show down for prayer, and so they have to cue to the cut to a commercial or a video at that exact time. It's a very different experience, that's for sure.
So they stopped for prayer. That's very interesting. So we obviously don't see that. The viewer sees none of that. They see a video package about Brock Lesnar or some random Ricochet T-shirt, I'm sure. Exactly, yeah. All right, so Nate, are there any moments specifically that you can look back on being with Premier Pro Wrestling as you are now that you're very proud of, more so than others, that you can say, man, that was a really good moment?
I think the first one that probably sticks out to me would be, when I actually got to have my first match.
Right.
With Premier. Randy's a pretty smart guy where, the first couple steps you get to take in the ring obviously are when you're training with them, but he throws you under a mask and he makes you work, because if you can't emote emotion underneath a mask, how are you going to do it with your face? How are you going to be able to do it when people actually know who you are? You know what I mean? So I worked for about a month, I think, under a mask, just working some development matches with some of the older guys and being able to pick their brains. But man, that first night where I was able to kind of come out and be myself, what was great, having my friends and family there, them being able to kind of be with me on the journey is cool. the school and the place that we run isn't too far away from my hometown. So, you know, a couple times we packed the place with all the Rockton faithful.
Yeah.
And that was so cool being able to have them there with me. And I think probably my two proudest moments, at least, character development wise and in-ring development wise, was a championship match I had with Matt when he was the champion. Just finally being able to have that moment where things start to click a little bit and you're like, oh, this is why I'm doing things. This is why Matt is hounding me so much, being like, Nate, pay attention. We're trying to tell a story to these people. We're not just going out there to be flashy and be cool. We're trying to draw them in, and being able to feel that moment, you know, locking eyes with Matt and knowing that, hey, we got him, you know, we got him, and they're in on it, and we're ready to go balls to the walls, is I think what I love the most about pro wrestling is some of those singular moments where, you know, it's bigger than anything you ever could have thought it could be. So
Hornswoggle was over immediately, right? As soon as you came out from underneath that ring, the crowd loved it. But was there a moment for you personally when you thought that it clicked?
I don't know. I mean, I remember a time where Finley kind of said to me on a house show, like, you ain't a heel anymore. You're a baby face. And I was kind of laughing about it. I was like, yeah, you are too, man. Uh-huh. And then it was like just over time, it just more and more and more and more kids. I mean, kids made my career. Adults hated me. Adults liked me because their kids had to. Their kids loved me. I was never an internet favorite by any means. I ruined everything. Just ask the internet. But it's the kids love me, and I think Hawkins has this weird like thing, and I think he's kind of right. I think kids kind of think I'm one of them. I have a beard.
By association,
yeah, and I think that's what it is, and especially with the Vince's son angle, I think that made it even more. And
right,
I think I resonated with the young audience so much that I mean I talk about it again. I go back to my autobiography, and I talk about how Hunter Triple H, he chose me for DX. Because he told Sean about how he felt that kids were really, really a fan of mine. And with that next run that they were having, that could pull the kid audience in. That kind of resonated with me. And I was like, okay, maybe. I don't know. It's just, but I never viewed it that way. I never viewed like, oh, goddamn, am I over? Because I was like, because it was
kind of an organic growth, right?
Yeah, it really was, and it was just over time, more and more and more. It grew. It was crazy how big it got. And the lasting power of it.
Absolutely, and to speak to that a little bit, I'll be honest. 10-year-old me had to have my mom or dad tell me that you weren't also a kid. I remember that.
When I worked at Target when I was 17, 18 years old, I had kids all the time. Mom, why does that baby have a beard? And like stuff like that. I had a guy tell me when I worked there. I was a checkout person, and he walked through my line. And he proceeds to say to me, "It's nice that a place like this hires someone like you." And this was an older guy,
cool.
And I proceed to look at him. I proceed to look at him and I go, I had to think, I was like, oh, he's saying this kind of midget, but I'm going to play with this. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I said, oh, like a young white man. He goes, no, you know what I mean. And I go, a midget? And he goes, and as I'm doing this, I'm ringing up his things multiple times just to overcharge him.
Hiking up that price.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
amazing.
You son of a bitch. I'm going to charge you for this. But I've always had that, and I still do. I still get it. With my son, when I go to the store with my son, the reactions from people,
Mm-hmm.
and not people, but kids,
Right.
of looking at me, and my son's taller than me by like 6 inches now, looking at me and looking at him and like trying to put two and two together, like something doesn't add up here. Your dad looks really, really old, but he's shorter than I am. Like, it's very weird, and I love it. And my son has always just had the reaction of, that's just my dad, whether it's
Yeah.
because the midget stuff or because the Hornswoggle stuff. That's just my dad, and that's what he's always said to people. It's awesome.
Yeah, that is. I think it was the way definitely that they portrayed you right for a while, like not
Yeah.
talking and stuff, that let the
Yeah.
kids believe that. But that guy at what'd you say, Target, he was pretty rude and persistent. It's a bad combination.
It was he definitely wanted it known that me to know what he meant, and it was very obvious what he meant at that point. But I was gonna have fun with it.
Absolutely. And so, Nate, tell us a bit about how you allow that personality that you spoke about earlier to shine through your promos. I know you said you're going into a media film area, right? So how do you kind of turn into that multifaceted performer?
Yeah. I think it's interesting sometimes. It helps definitely not being an introvert like we talked about.
Yeah.
Not being completely camera shy. Being able to, I think it's something I've been able to do since I was younger, is just, having, been a good talker since I was little. People usually tell me that, but like, man, it's a completely different world when you're sitting there and you've got, 9 guys after a show and everybody's getting ready to cut some promos, and everybody, it's like 9 eyes on you specifically. And it's like, all right, Nate, this is your moment to either make it or you don't. Are you going to fumble over what you say or you don't? And I think sometimes it helps that I can thrive in that environment where, once I kind of let that thought come to my head, I can just kind of roll with it. It also helps too, being, it being the thing that, another passion of mine being film and television. I've done some broadcast stuff with my school, and, having, some of my friends' dads, he was a radio DJ. So being able to spend time with him and be able to kind of come up with something from nothing, I think helps a lot, as, a lot of guys say. But, having those moments where, I'll just be sitting by myself and be like, okay, I think, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Save that, put that up there. Okay, that, maybe I can work that in some way. If Matt's going to throw some at me, okay, I got to be ready to fire back. I got to have something stored up, something. So, it helps having it never really leave your brain. I think always being thinking about, okay, what kind of approach am I trying to take? Why am I doing this? What can help me get all of my emotions and what I want across to the viewers the best way? And,
Right.
A lot of it has just come with time, I guess. And like I said, I've had like a year and a half, you know what I mean? Like that's, give or take a couple months, because it's been on and off. But I think personally, I have seen some development in that area, and kind of knowing what I want. You start off and I don't know what I'm supposed to be. Randy's like, all right, Nate, go ahead. You're up. And I'm like, okay, guess I'm just doing this. And then we'll go with that and see where that goes until it crash and burns. And then I got to restart again. But I think that also attests a lot to what Dylan's done in his career. It's like, you don't stay relevant for no reason. No, people, it's the kind of business, I think, where, it's fast and it's quick and you're in and you're out and that's it. But, he's somebody that has been able to reinvent himself over the years. And that's definitely something that I try to learn in figuring out, like, okay, how will I what's next? What am I working towards? How do I want to keep developing myself? What's the next move? So, he's been a great role model for me, at least in a lot of these guys, seeing guys who refuse to not be forgotten, I think is definitely a motivator for me.
I think, in this day and age with social media and how people's attention span is so short, reinventing is the biggest thing you have to do. And it's hard. It's hard. So hard. And I have a hard time with it because I don't use social media. I don't use it as much as I should. I use it to promote and plug bands that I really like, or for random thoughts that come in my head, or to tell stupid jokes and make fun of people on like other wrestlers. I don't use it to promote myself because I'm just not good at it. I don't get it. I don't get that part of society and culture. And Ethan Page from Impact yells at me daily, like, "Hey, what are you doing on social media today?" And I literally just put nothing. And that's true because I don't care about it. And that's a flaw and something I should realize that is so important these days, but it's just not important to me. I'd rather hang out and play Switch or Xbox than make a tweet. And that's just my world. And could I be making my world even bigger and even greater? Sure. But I don't get it. And I don't have that mindset, which is unfortunate, but I don't see it changing.
Right. And so, I want to get into, speaking of reinventing, so towards I guess kind of the ending point of your original run with the WWE, during the WLC time period, you really did reinvent yourself with 3MB and whatnot, and I've heard numerous times you say that that's your fondest memories, right? Are the WLC matches where you really got to kind of be yourself?
I will never do anything as good as WLC ever again, and I know that, and I'm okay with that. I wish people talked about the mask versus hair match a little more, because that one's so good. But we worked backwards. Like, we did a TLC match first, and then the next day we all kind of went, shoot, what do we do now? Like,
yeah, what tops that? Seriously.
Yeah. And knowing how good it was, we instantly knew. The minute we started, we instantly knew, damn, this is it. And it just kept.
Yeah.
And I don't, like I said, I just don't think I'll ever do anything as good as that. And that's something that I look back on so fondly. And it's one of those things where everyone went into it expecting this is going to be crap.
Yeah.
And in New Jersey, which is the second toughest crowd in the country behind Chicago, they should have pooped all over it from the start.
Yeah.
But from the start, we had them, and by the end of it, everyone was on their feet. And I got heat for it, but I don't care. It was the best match on the pre-show, much less on the regular card. We had the greatest match that night, and I think because we blew everyone's perceptions out of the water.
Yeah.
Everyone was thinking this is going to be dumb, and we just killed each other.
I can absolutely attest to that. I actually, believe it or not, when I was younger, I got the like a used piece of the ladder or something like that.
Really?
I do. Yeah, it's downstairs in my little display room. Yeah.
In my office. So because I knew how special that night was, the minute especially when we got done.
Yeah.
I ran to the props truck, and I said,
"Oh, that's great."
I said, I need a piece of that table, and they go, okay. I said, no, I need a piece of it right now.
Yeah.
And I had everyone that was involved in the match sign it, and it's in my office. It's like one of
that's
the
great.
main pieces framed in my office, signed by everyone that night with 2 nice photos of it. So it's
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look me up, that's what comes up. It's like other stuff, then it's like proud owner of WLC Ladderman.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
So could I just say, how was it behind the scenes when you were making that transition from like the Leprechaun to Hornswoggle kind of, new image? You say you got heat for that.
I wanted to talk. All I wanted to do was talk. And I finally got a chance to. So when I got that chance, I ran with it. I hated not talking. I hated being just this character. I wanted to be a heel. I pitched different heel ideas for so long that it finally worked, and it finally happened. I was just happy to be doing it, and there was no looking back for me.
For sure. And last question for Nate before I head it over to Hornswoggle. You watch the current product, correct? So who would you compare your style to if there is anybody? And who would your dream match be with?
I don't think that, it's still such an early stage, right? I don't think I have my style of wrestling, I guess. I mean, I'm just a kid from Rockton trying to follow his dream of, being a professional wrestler.
That's always the hardest question to answer, isn't it? What is your, that and who are you is always like the weirdest thing, because I don't know. I just bite an ass. You just do your thing. It's just odd.
Yeah. Gotta put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I think it's good because it gets me thinking about it too. It's like,
it's a good question to ask.
Yeah,
because it gets you thinking for once.
Yeah. Honestly, this isn't me, because I would be thinking, okay, who would be my dream match? But honestly, my dream match is, whatever my next match is going to be. I don't think I can allow myself at this time to be thinking, so far ahead that I lose sight of just being able to do what I'm doing right now, the best that I can, and being able to capitalize on all of the opportunities that I get now. Because, wrestling in front of 40 people isn't exactly, who would you want to wrestle with in the WWE? And it's like, of course, that's the dream. But I think to me, just being able to look out and see, okay, what are some of the other indie promotions in Illinois, Wisconsin, and Iowa, right? There's the 3, I'm right there, and Minnesota. Who are some of the people that I look up to in these promotions, and where do I see myself going? And obviously, I was able to wrestle Sky a little bit when she was in PPW, and obviously she's gone out and made an awesome name for herself now with multiple promotions in the Midwest. Now she's starting to expand out. I think she's going to back to somewhere on a coast, I think, coming up. But being able to see that and being able to see some of these older guys and how they've wrapped up the fans and these other promotions, that's my current short-term goal dream, is being able to, which is the biggest struggle, for me right now is okay, Nate, how do we take that next step? Where do you go from here? Okay, I've gone from point A to point B where I've been at this point. Okay, how do I go out and start actually, making a name for myself? How can I go out there and get in front of new people and be able to wrestle in front of different crowds and meet all of these fantastic people along the way? So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that, I have a dream opponent, on a major scale right now. I would say, my dream is just to get out there and wrestle the next match that I can.
It's a really great answer.
Yeah, I always say make little goals. So those are much easier to check off and much more attainable than huge goals.
Dylan, can you just speak about your life after WWE now? Talk about your company a little bit. We'd love to hear about it.
I mean, before all this craziness happened, I was busier than I've ever been. I had between mid-February and June, like 6th or 7th, I had no weekends except one Sunday.
Wow.
And it was crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And now it's, maybe a show here, maybe 2 next month. Just who knows what's happening.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I started running my company, ACW Wisconsin, while I was still under contract with WWE. We started in 2013, December 2013. And I love it.
Yeah.
This life is fun. This is really, really fun, seeing different small town companies. I say, I'm not an indie star, but Horse Cave, Kentucky really, really likes me. And it's just stuff like that. That's how I know that I've had a decent run.
Right.
When the small towns like that are so behind me. But our company's going strong. Check us out anywhere you can: Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. ACW Wisconsin. We're running still till the end of the year. We're running almost monthly, and it's pretty crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, seriously.
It's really, really fun. And we started training school 5 years ago, again, out of my own boredom, same as other companies started. And it's just, there's never been looking back. And that's always a good thing to have.
Oh, for sure. We'll definitely put it down in the description. Everyone should check it out. And Hornswoggle, lastly, do you have any advice for NPK with his career and his future in the wrestling world?
Yeah, man. I tell everyone, that's always the question I get asked the most. What advice do you have? What can I do?
Yeah.
What can I do to get hired? Nothing. There's nothing you can do to get hired. I tell my students day one, none of you are going to make it to WWE. And I'm not going to get, and especially with my help. And the reason I say that is because that's an unattainable goal. You can be the best wrestler in the world, but if they're not looking to hire someone like you, they ain't going to hire you. They would never have hired a Kevin Owens and a Samoa Joe 10 years ago. But then they got some hype behind them, and they're two of the best performers in the world and at the time, and WWE hired them because they knew they have it. So all I tell people is go to as many shows as you can, show your face as much as you can, get your name out there as much as you can, make that hype. I don't know how to do that. Make your own hype, make people care about you, and they'll care about you. And I guess just try to do as much as you can. Just go to these crappy ones for $20. Go to the good ones for $50. But don't ever say, no, that one's beneath me. Who cares? I'm working in front of 9 people. Since I got released, I've worked in front of 9. I've worked in front of 11. I've worked in front of 13. I don't care. It's fun to me. I still make it fun. Challenge yourself. Just keep challenging yourself. I think that's about it.
That's great. Thank you. So that brings us to the end here. Thank you so much for being on the show. This was fantastic.
This was a much more laid back interview than the typical, hey, who are you trained by? Hey, how was this? Hey, off of Wikipedia. So thank you for making it a little easier than that.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Woo! Messy Daddy. Boogie Woogie Man feel good. I tell my people, my brothers and sisters, don't you dare miss online. Rewind, recap, relive. Oh yeah.